In a jaw-dropping turn of events, the FBI has raided Rick Harrison's mansion, uncovering shocking evidence that could change everything we thought we knew about the star of Pawn Stars. What was once a beloved figure of trust and humor on TV now finds himself at the center of a criminal investigation that is shaking the foundations of his public image. Stay tuned as we dive deep into the explosive details of this case and what the FBI uncovered behind closed doors. You won't believe what they found. Keep watching. Before we dive into this shocking story, we want to hear from you. What do you think about Rick Harrison's arrest and the evidence uncovered by the FBI? Do you think it's all part of a bigger conspiracy, or is there more to the story than we know? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to stay updated on all the latest developments. Let's get into it. In a shocking investigation, the FBI raided the home of Rick Harrison, the famous star of Pawn Stars. However, what they discovered was not the valuable items one might expect, but a secret basement filled with strange mysteries. The basement was packed with encrypted data files, surveillance camera systems, and signs suggesting that someone may have lived or been held captive there. This raised a series of questions that left the public in turmoil. Could this be a long-hidden conspiracy, a massive misunderstanding, or perhaps an orchestrated campaign to bring down a celebrity? On a meticulously planned morning, the FBI carried out a raid on Rick Harrison's home. The timing was chosen with precision to prevent any possibility of evidence destruction or escape. Just 38 seconds after the front door was breached, Rick was subdued in the master bedroom on the second floor. Wearing little clothing and completely taken by surprise, he requested to speak with a lawyer and denied any involvement in the incident. However, the FBI didn't arrive empty-handed. They came with a legal search warrant and a clear list of targets, including electronics, financial records, and suspected unreported assets. At the same time, two other individuals in the house were temporarily detained for questioning. One was a woman in her 30s, and the other, an older man dressed like a military officer, was carrying an unregistered communication device. Notably, neither of them had legal resident status in the U.S. and were suspected of being connected to a complex conspiracy that Rick Harrison was allegedly involved in. These clues only deepened the mystery surrounding the case. The investigation took a dramatic turn when a secret metal door was discovered hidden behind a fake bookshelf in the office on the first floor. This door did not appear in any of the blueprints or renovation documents the FBI had collected. Initially, Rick claimed to have no knowledge of the door. However, when a biometric lock system was used, it only recognized one person, Rick Harrison. After some hesitation, he cooperated and reluctantly placed his hand on the authentication device. The door opened, revealing a dark spiral staircase that led agents down to a secluded basement, one that was not mentioned in any legal records. The underground area astonished the entire investigation team. The space was reinforced with concrete and steel, featuring a separate ventilation system and electronic locks, meeting the standards of a high-security facility. Technical experts confirmed that this was a soundproof space capable of blocking electronic waves, a feature typically found in specially classified facilities. The investigation shifted from a routine check to an in-depth analysis of an underground system clearly built for a specific purpose. An anonymous expert in illegal activity investigations pointed out that it was highly unusual for a celebrity like Rick Harrison to own a basement with such high levels of security and soundproofing. This could be a warning sign of illicit activity. Such spaces have been used in the past for purposes like smuggling goods or other illegal operations. So, what is truly being hidden in this basement? During the investigation, the FBI uncovered an asset storage area with unknown origins and a temporary control point within a complex network. As the agents entered the basement, they discovered numerous specialized electronic devices, encrypted documents, and signs suggesting that the space was used for tightly controlled operations. The agents on the scene believed this could mark the beginning of one of the largest investigations of their careers. Immediately after the raid, the entire house was sealed off, and forensic digital teams were mobilized to analyze the clues. Rick Harrison was transferred to a federal detention center without bail while awaiting the results of the investigation. The initial evidence seized was encrypted and cataloged, including dozens of data storage devices, financial documents, and unusual items. One of the most crucial findings was the internal camera system. The FBI noted that the footage extracted from this system could shed light on many important details, potentially altering the course of the entire investigation. After discovering the secret metal door leading to the basement, a special technical team was urgently deployed. Although the biometric lock initially required verification from Rick himself, the experts eventually managed to break the security and enter cautiously. According to FBI standard protocol, any underground structure discovered in a residential area without a clear purpose is considered a potential site for dangerous activities. The investigators were fully equipped with protective gear, biological gas detectors, and radiation scanners before entering the underground space. Rick's basement was unlike any other entertainment area. Spanning about 3,000 square feet, roughly half the size of the ground floor, the structure comprised 3 distinct sections: a central activity area, a high-security storage zone, and a space believed to have been used for detainment or controlling activities. All these details raised a significant question for the investigators. Was this merely a suspicious coincidence, or could it truly be a crucial link in a more complex network? Inside this space, investigators uncovered a series of control panels with over 16 screens displaying live video feeds. Some of the screens showed angles from the garage or rooms in the basement. However, what caught the investigators' attention were at least 6 screens displaying footage from unidentified locations, unrelated to the current house. Initial analyses suggested that these images might originate from external sites, set up for remote surveillance purposes. On the control panel, the agents also discovered a system consisting of encryption devices, military-grade wireless routers, high-security servers, and an electronic safe integrated into the floor. Inside the safe, the agents seized 12 USB drives, 5 solid-state drives, and 2 specialized memory cards typically found in surveillance equipment. All this data was transferred to the Federal Digital Analysis Lab for decryption. Investigators hope that decrypting this data will provide crucial clues to help unravel the case. The devices the FBI discovered not only stored personal data, but could also be the core of a complex operating system. In the adjacent storage area, Steel shelves were neatly arranged with coded labels, containing hundreds of old hard drives in anti-static packaging. Each drive was labeled with encryption codes like E419K or SLV0923, which could be linked to locations, dates, or personal identifiers. These drives were protected by AES 256-bit encryption and biometric security, making data access incredibly difficult and requiring advanced technology to decrypt. One of the most unsettling areas the FBI discovered was a small room, about 15 square meters, completely soundproof and without natural light. The room had no surveillance cameras but was equipped with an independent ventilation system and a lock operated from the outside. Inside, there was only a bed frame welded to the floor, a toilet, and a 2-meter-long iron chain attached to the wall. On the chain, there was an old fabric bracelet, possibly belonging to a young person. Upon closer inspection, the team found a stain suspected to be dried blood and several strands of hair in a corner of the floor. This is not the work of an individual acting on impulse. This is the result of a detailed and deliberate plan, commented a senior agent. Investigators believe that this underground facility was not only designed to avoid detection, but also optimized for remote operations, storing sensitive data and managing systems in secrecy. These discoveries have opened up a new line of investigation, suggesting the existence of an underground network potentially orchestrated by Rick Harrison. According to experts, building and operating a facility like this with high-security systems, encryption devices, and soundproof rooms raises serious questions about its true purpose. Combined with financial records, digital data, and advanced intelligence-gathering equipment, the investigation team concluded that the case could involve serious violations, including illegal detainment, privacy breaches, and other illicit activities. A particularly shocking element is that the individual under suspicion is a celebrity, often known for a trustworthy public image. This adds both intrigue and complexity to the case. If the suspicions prove correct, this isn't just a suspicious location, but a symbol of how a public image can be exploited to conceal unethical behavior, as noted by Yale criminal law professor Thomas Kleen. The search ended at 3 a.m., and the entire scene was recorded using 3D scanning technology, creating a detailed record. The evidence collected was categorized into 3 groups: Group A, digital data; Group B, biological samples; and Group C, surveillance and control devices. Before leaving the scene, the technical team completely disabled the basement's electrical system and installed intrusion alarms. The investigation has now entered its second phase, focusing on tracking the origins of those involved and expanding the scope of the investigation. The underground network discovered by the FBI may have been operating in the shadows for years, and what is particularly noteworthy is that it all started not from a large-scale investigation or a shocking leak, but from a single email. This email was sent to Agent Leah Cortez, a veteran of the FBI's Las Vegas office. The subject line was simple: "Pawn Star is not what you think." The content was brief, but it included a blurry photo of Rick Harrison in a bar, facing an older man wearing sunglasses. The face was quickly identified as Roman Zavich, an individual who had been under surveillance for suspected involvement in international underground networks. What caught Cortez's attention was not only the photo but also the accuracy of the information in the email. The sender, who identified themselves as JM, claimed to have worked in logistics and had witnessed several suspicious deliveries in an area of Henderson, providing detailed descriptions that could be verified. The final line of the email contained a chilling message: "Look in the basement, you'll see the truth." This led to a turning point, prompting the FBI to initiate the investigation. If you want to dive deeper into the underground network and how the investigation into Rick Harrison started, don't miss this video. Hit the like button, share, and leave your thoughts in the comments below. What do you think about the mysteries behind this case? Be sure to subscribe to stay updated with more in-depth analyses and the latest updates. Let's uncover the truth now. Initially, the investigation team was cautious due to Rick Harrison's reputation. However, after 48 hours of investigation and verifying the information, the Federal Human Trafficking Unit officially launched a preliminary investigation. The investigation began by examining Rick Harrison's immigration records. As a collector and international dealer, he would likely have a significant history of international travel. However, the records revealed that Rick had not left the United States in the past 5 years. No international flights, no immigration stamps, and no activity on private airlines. However, the company accounts related to Rick painted a different picture. Hundreds of thousands of dollars had been transferred to entities in Prague, Bangkok, and Tirana, locations suspected of being connected to international criminal activities. These inconsistencies led investigators to suspect that the transactions may have been carried out through a third party or under an alternate identity. The FBI continued to monitor Rick's daily activities and discovered that he was no longer spending much time at Pawn Stars. Instead, he was frequently seen at suspicious locations, including an abandoned warehouse in North Las Vegas, an unoccupied luxury apartment, and a pawn shop that operated at night. Notably, all of Rick's meetings took place after 9 p.m., were typically brief, and did not involve many people at once. Facial recognition technology revealed that several individuals present at these locations had ties to criminal organizations in Mexico, California, and Florida, with one believed to be connected to a human trafficking network. Although there was no conclusive evidence, the presence of these individuals at properties linked to Rick prompted the FBI to continue investigating the financial aspect. Through court-ordered data, the FBI discovered that Rick Harrison not only ran public businesses, but was also the owner or shareholder of at least 17 limited liability companies, LLCs, across 6 states and 3 countries. Many of these companies had no clear business activities, with offices registered at mailboxes or unoccupied buildings. One particular company, Silverside Holdings, registered in the Cayman Islands, had received over $3 million. These discoveries further complicated the case. The identification of suspicious financial transactions and ties to international criminal organizations opened a new line of investigation. The big question now is whether Rick Harrison is merely a part of a larger network, or if he could be the mastermind behind an underground criminal operation that has long been hidden beneath the facade of legitimate business dealings. The investigation into Rick Harrison's financial system has uncovered a complex network that has been operating in the shadows for the past 16 months. During this period, over $4 million was transferred from sources previously investigated for suspected involvement in suspicious financial activities. As the FBI continued analyzing the transactions, one mysterious name kept coming up: Eric Lane. Despite having no official tax records, Lane owned several luxury properties near Pawn Stars locations, all sharing the same high-security system. Some of these properties had even been licensed for basement renovations, but there were no clear records of any work being carried out. The case took a major turn at the end of 2022 when Kyle Mason, Rick's former warehouse manager, decided to cooperate with authorities. After being fired following questioning about late-night transactions, Mason secretly recorded license plate numbers, meeting times, and installed hidden cameras at the warehouse. This evidence helped authorities secure a search warrant for Rick's mansion in Henderson, where a hidden basement was suspected to exist. The investigation officially entered its action phase, involving financial experts, cybercrime specialists, and tactical task forces. The raid on Rick Harrison's mansion was meticulously planned down to the smallest detail, with support from drone data, satellite imagery, 3D models of the mansion, and blueprints for electrical and plumbing systems. The goal was to ensure that no evidence was destroyed before the special forces arrived. During the raid, agents uncovered a complex financial system behind Rick Harrison, a celebrity known for his reality TV show and antique business. Investigators described this financial plan as a labyrinth, designed to disperse responsibility and conceal the flow of money. By tracking the bank transactions, the FBI discovered that money moved between these companies at a rate of 50 to 300 transactions per month. Notably, most payments were vaguely labeled as shipping fees, consulting services, or Package B payment. One of the highlights of the investigation was Silverside Holdings, a company registered in the Cayman Islands, which received over $3.4 million in 16 months from accounts in Eastern Europe and Southeast Asia, regions that had previously been monitored for involvement in illegal activities. The money was then distributed through LLCs in the United States and legitimized through internal contracts, service invoices, and even virtual asset transactions. According to Daniel Rohr, an international financial expert, this is a prime example of using shell companies to launder dirty money into clean money. After the funds were filtered through 3 layers of offshore entities, they were sent back to the U.S. as service fees, making it nearly impossible to trace the original source without internal evidence. Rick Harrison's public reputation was also suspected to be part of the suspicious transactions. One example is a $270,000 transfer from Bangkok to a company in Arizona under Rick's name, recorded as a purchase of a private archaeological artifact. However, there were no records of this artifact being legally imported into the United States. The accompanying documentation, written in both English and Thai, described the item as a 14th-century vase, but experts confirmed that no such vase had ever appeared in public exhibitions or auctions. The FBI uncovered a complex transaction pattern between companies linked to Rick. One U.S.-based company would transfer money to another company registered under the name of his family members or associates. The funds would then flow through accounts in regions with loose financial regulations, further supporting the theory that a sophisticated financial system was being operated to conceal illegal activities. FBI investigators discovered that Rick Harrison and his associated companies had used financial hubs like the Cayman Islands and Panama to move money offshore, then bring it back to the U.S. as investment capital. This tactic, known as circular money laundering, made the flow of funds appear legitimate with full invoices and documentation. However, according to investigators, this was merely a paper curtain concealing organized illegal activities. One of the key strategies involved utilizing services from organizations specializing in providing anonymous solutions, allowing anyone for just a few $100s to register a company and open a bank account without needing to appear in person. The FBI compiled a list of over 200 financial transactions linked to entities using anonymous services, revealing a carefully planned system to conceal the identities of those behind the operations. Rick Harrison not only hid the flow of money, but also invested these funds in real estate and the stock market under the guise of a venture capitalist. At least 6 properties were purchased and renovated with foreign capital, some left vacant after renovations, while others were used to store electronic equipment, safes, surveillance devices, and other items with unclear purposes. One of the notable discoveries was a house in Nevada where an underground tunnel was found, similar to those discovered at Rick's main residence. This raised suspicions that it could have been used as a secret storage facility or a transit point for underground activities. Legally, these operations could potentially violate several laws related to money laundering, financial fraud, and facilitating illegal activities. The findings in this complex financial system were enough to secure prosecution, but when combined with digital evidence and a human network, it was clear that this was an organization with a complete structure, from finance and logistics to human resources. Mary Jenkins, a criminal defense attorney in New York, stated that this was a highly structured model, designed to operate sustainably and independently while being cleverly shielded by the public image of a celebrity. What surprised many was the quiet yet evident shift in Rick Harrison's behavior and lifestyle. Once seen as a symbol of simplicity, sincerity, and trustworthiness, with a passion for history, excellent negotiating skills, and a down-to-earth sense of humor, Rick was an indispensable face on Pawn Stars, representing traditional American values such as hard work, honesty, and family. However, behind the spotlight, a different picture slowly began to emerge. According to investigation records and accounts from former associates, the turning point in Rick's life began around 2015, when Pawn Stars reached its peak fame. With high earnings from reality television, Rick gradually withdrew from public activities. He barely attended events, rarely gave interviews, and became increasingly silent on social media. Initially, many believed it was just his way of protecting his privacy, but unusual signs began to surface. A former personal assistant stated that Rick became more secretive and tightly controlled the flow of information. He always carried multiple phones, each for a specific purpose: work, family, and even special contacts. Rick's office was so heavily guarded that no one was allowed inside without permission. Rick Harrison, once beloved by the public for his image as the wise, humorous, and approachable pawnshop owner on Pawn Stars, underwent significant changes in behavior and lifestyle. One of the first signs was an increase in internal control at work. Starting in 2017, Rick began requiring all key employees to sign strict non-disclosure agreements, demanding they not share work-related information and forbidding any mention of relationships or activities outside the pawn shop. Those who didn't sign immediately faced the risk of losing their jobs. According to former employees, Rick became increasingly withdrawn, irritable, paranoid, and more reclusive. These signs led those closest to him to realize that, behind his public image, Rick was dealing with immense pressure he was reluctant to share. In 2018, fans began to notice the gradual absence of Rick's son, Corey Harrison, from the show. At the same time, the relationship between Rick and his longtime companion, Chumley, also began to strain following Chumley's personal events. Although Rick never commented publicly, some sources suggest that the change in his behavior reflected a more closed-off and cautious attitude towards those around him. Pawn Stars, once known for its honesty and spontaneity, began to change. One producer revealed that Rick started to exert tighter control over the content, requiring reshoots if there were any verbal missteps, and even suggesting the removal of segments that were not beneficial to his image. Some guests, deemed too prominent, had their screen time limited. The show, once a natural playground, had now transformed into a stage carefully curated and censored. Dr. Michelle Tran, a media psychologist, suggests that these changes may be a sign that Rick was facing pressure to control his public image. Upon reaching the peak of fame, many public figures begin to fear being misunderstood, scrutinized, or losing their status, which can lead to an overwhelming need for control in both their work and personal lives. Rick Harrison seems to be no exception. At the beginning of 2020, Rick almost disappeared from public life for about 8 months. While many celebrities shared their isolation experiences through live streams or volunteer activities, Rick remained completely silent. No posts, no public appearances. A technician hired to upgrade the security system at Rick's home during this time revealed that Rick had requested the installation of thermal cameras, bulletproof glass, and dual biometric locks. When asked why, Rick simply replied, "There are people trying to break into my house and I'm not letting them in." When Rick returned at the end of 2020, he had noticeably changed in attitude, becoming more serious and cautious. In a podcast interview, when asked about a rumored warehouse that was allegedly his, Rick abruptly halted the conversation and left the studio. Shortly afterward, the warehouse became the focal point of a major investigation into suspicious shipping activities. The changes in Rick's behavior were not just personal shifts. They aligned with larger movements behind the scenes. From 2016 to 2022, every time Rick withdrew from the media, each change in his control over information and every internal conflict at the shop coincided with the emergence of new companies, unusual deals, and increasingly opaque transactions. It seemed that Rick was not only changing due to the pressures of fame, but also adapting to a more complex reality, where everything had to be calculated, controlled, and kept secret. Rick Harrison's fame, while bringing immense success to Pawn Stars, also brought with it unexpected dark sides. Behind the friendly smile and wisdom he portrayed on television, there were subtle yet alarming signs of change. From unusual bouts of anger to an increasingly tight control over every aspect of the show, an underground world began to take shape behind the scenes. While the public continued to adore Rick's image, those closest to him and keen observers noticed a noticeable shift in his behavior. Dr. Elaine Redmond, a media crime analyst, believes this change reflects a deeply defensive strategy where control becomes a protective shell against the fear of exposure. For nearly 2 decades, Pawn Stars has not only been an entertainment show, but also a symbol of modern American culture. However, its fame and credibility have led many to question whether the show might have served as the perfect facade, concealing shady deals behind the scenes. Unofficial investigations and reports from media analysts have suggested that the show could have been used as a tool to distract public attention, facilitating illegal transactions. One notable example is the appearance of D.H., a man who brought in a 20th century camera during an episode in 2018. Upon closer inspection, it was discovered that he had secretly placed a small object inside the lens compartment before handing the camera to Rick. While there was no official confirmation about the nature of this object, the action sparked much speculation, especially when news of disappearances in Europe began circulating. Dr. Redmond noted that this was a sophisticated media strategy where seemingly ordinary items and conversations on television could send subtle signals, hinting at actions or transactions taking place behind the scenes. Pawn Stars had become a tough shell to crack regarding underground activities. Rick's image, that of a knowledgeable and friendly man, was reinforced through hundreds of episodes. However, when faced with rumors and criticism, Rick simply smiled and said, "I'm just a good used salesman." For many, that simple explanation was enough to maintain their trust. However, investigators delved into the contracts and sponsorship deals related to the show, uncovering suspicious payments made to Rick's LLC. These payments originated from unidentified intermediaries, suspected to be connected to shell organizations with links to shady financial networks. The central role of Pawn Stars in controlling its image and information has also been criticized. Former members of the show shared that Rick began to exert tighter control over the content. He required reshoots for any verbal mistakes and even suggested removing segments that were not beneficial to his public image. The changes in the style and operation of the show reflected a profound shift in how Rick wanted to craft and protect his public persona. Those close to Rick noticed that he was not only facing pressure from fame, but also from the suspicious relationships and transactions taking place in the shadows. Rick Harrison's production team approved every final detail for each episode of Pawn Stars. The editing and screening of guests were closely monitored to ensure everything stayed on track. One producer mentioned, "No one was allowed to stray from the script." At the time, the production team thought this was simply a way to maintain content quality, but in hindsight, it seems this was carefully calculated to avoid any elements of suspicion. Mark Hidalgo, the federal prosecutor, stated that if there were evidence showing that a popular TV show was being used to support illicit activities, the issue would go far beyond financial crimes. He affirmed, "This is media manipulation, a form of mass perception control." And in this game, Pawn Stars was the key piece. The show not only helped Rick build his reputation, but also created a perfect facade, allowing any suspicions to be easily drowned out by the public's familiarity and empathy toward him. The story of Rick Harrison and Pawn Stars, if true, could be one of the most remarkable stories in modern media history. It raises profound questions about trust, reputation, and the ability to conceal the truth behind a sophisticated media facade. As more and more people believe what they see on television, the truth can easily be overlooked. Is Rick Harrison a victim of a complex conspiracy, Or is he the mastermind behind a shady network that has been operating for years? We will continue to follow the case and bring you the latest updates, because sometimes the truth doesn't lie in the light, but is hidden in the places we least expect. This question remains divisive among the public, and we want to hear your thoughts. Share your opinions in the comments below. What do you think the truth is? If you believe this is a story more people need to know, don't forget to like, share the video, and subscribe to the channel to stay updated with more in-depth analyses.